Hey guys.
Well, hello.
So,
Doing
we're
something
trying
a little
different
something
here.
a little different this time.
Typically, we're gonna, generally we're gonna stick to Let's Plays and all that stuff. But we have some news, some stuff we want to talk about. So some stuff we've got to get off our chest. So we're gonna do a little podcast type thing and just talk about, movies and video games and news that's going on.
Yeah, I guess ultimately, generally speaking, this will be a Let's Play channel.
A Let's Play channel.
But the idea that we've discussed is, we're both extremely into comics, we're both extremely into sci-fi and genre films, and maybe this could be a place for that sort of a discussion as well, where hopefully it's not just a one-sided thing where we put out videos. Hopefully, if anyone watches this and you guys have an opinion, we'd love to hear it. We'd
share
love to
it with us.
Exactly.
Talk about it.
So hopefully this can be a place where Let's Plays are, I guess, the majority of what we do, but not the entirety of what we do.
All of what we do.
Yeah. We're into many different things, and hopefully that can be, this channel can
multifaceted
be a
human
multifaceted
beings, as
channel.
we all are.
Exactly. So I guess what's more pressing on our mind, what we just witnessed, what's freshest on the brain.
What we just witnessed. So today, this is being recorded on Sunday. Not entirely sure when this is going to go up, probably Monday or Tuesday, but this is Sunday. On Friday, we saw a little movie called
It is May the 19th
Godzilla.
today, and we saw on Friday
We saw Godzilla.
a little film called Godzilla.
Now,
Godzuki.
let me preface this with a bit of history. I'm an enormous Godzilla fan. I'm an enormous fan of the kaiju genre. When I was a kid,
Yeah, we didn't introduce ourselves. Josh is.
I'm
Once again,
Josh.
Tiago and Josh. Josh is a huge kaiju fan.
Huge, enormous kaiju fan, enormous Godzilla fan. When I was younger, every Friday, my father would take me down to Blockbuster when Blockbuster was still a thing, and he would rent Godzilla films for me. He would rent Godzilla films for
When
me.
that shit still existed.
Yeah, when that shit still existed. So he would rent these movies for me, and I would watch them, and I loved them. They were so awesome when I was growing up. And it was fucking great. I mean, tokusatsu and kaiju, that was a big part of my childhood. So I heard about this film at Comic-Con when it was announced, I think, about 2 or 3 years ago. And I was excited but cautious, because the last time... Cautiously optimistic, because the last time America did a Godzilla film, it was a fucking abortion. It was a disaster. As I'm sure we all know.
Godzilla 98.
Godzilla 98.
That Matthew Broderick.
The film that removed the god from Godzilla.
Left us with Zilla. Yeah.
So, as this new movie came closer to being released, and as we saw more trailers and more footage, I got progressively more excited because it looked really good. It looked like they were finally going to do...
Yeah, to your defense, it did look very promising.
Those trailers looked really good. Every new trailer was better than the last.
And I think what's interesting about that is, not to get off on a tangent here, but like the power of a trailer.
The power of a trailer.
To deceive. Because more importantly, I know we're going off tangent here, but Dredd, not to get off tangent for too long, but Dredd had an awful trailer.
It did have a pretty bad trailer.
It wasn't good.
Yeah.
And I suspect that had at least some part
of why that film didn't do well at the
why
box office.
that film kind of bombed financially and fiscally.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember watching the trailer with you, and we both kind of looked at each other and went, "Whoa, that's doesn't look great."
I don't know if that's going to be great.
Ended up, the Dredd, in my opinion, was one of the best movies of the year.
Dredd was one of the best movies of 2013, right? It came out in 2013.
Pretty sure 2013. And more importantly, in my opinion, and yours as well, one of the best callbacks to 80s action cinema.
80s action, which is something that's very near and dear to both of our hearts.
Yeah, that I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, one of the best action movies.
So these films are very
long.
They're completely opposite in that regard. Dredd had a horrible trailer.
Dredd had a horrible trailer, was an incredible film. Godzilla had phenomenal trailers. And,
ended up being not so great of a movie.
Well,
very opposite situations there.
But yeah, I mean, getting back onto the point, as these trailers came out, I got progressively more excited, and it finally seemed like they were going to do Godzilla justice. It finally seemed like we were going to get a good, big-budget American Godzilla film. Then we saw the movie.
And here's what's funny too.
How do I even?
I guess
to
give a little backstory on my perspective. I did not grow up with Godzilla.
No.
So I didn't quite have the I guess the expectation.
Yeah.
I was reasonably excited for it. Clearly not as much as Josh. He's the resident kaiju expert.
The resident kaiju groupie.
Yeah, I think Godzilla's cool. but I didn't grow up with them. It wasn't a part of my childhood. What I did grow up with was I remember my babysitter. Her husband was a massive Ultraman fan.
Yeah.
And I used to go to her house while my mother and father were at work, and I would watch his entire Ultraman collection. And I guess in some way they're related. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they
certainly are.
Tokusatsu.
Tokusatsu
Exactly. So I grew up with a lot of Ultraman. I didn't grow up with any Godzilla per se, but I was still reasonably kind of excited for the film. Yeah. If only because
Godzilla is one of the most iconic
film
characters.
Yeah. If only because Godzilla is so iconic that I guess it was about time that he got a decent American rendition. You know what I mean? A fair portrayal of what he's capable of being as a character.
Some justice done to him after the '98 debacle.
There is that, but
yeah. So we saw the film. I went in. I was so excited for this movie. I was looking forward to it just for an entire year, and
it was a long time coming, right?
It was a long time coming. A long time coming. I was looking forward to this, super excited. We saw it, and
we joked through half of the film. There was a moment in the movie where we stopped watching and just kind of started making jokes.
Because we were so fucking bored.
Uncontrollably
unbelievably bored. I mean, this was the most disappointing film I've seen in theaters in, I want to say, at least 5 years. This was the first time since Green Lantern that I left a movie,
and that's
angry.
actually a good segue there, because we've talked about this extensively, where there's nothing about Godzilla, and there's nothing about Green Lantern as a franchise, both as franchises respectively, that makes them impossible to translate the film.
There's this notion out there that, because Godzilla specifically is a Japanese franchise, a Japanese intellectual property, that Americans are just never going to get it right. And
I don't think that's right.
Disagree.
That doesn't make that's incorrect.
It's very easy to make a good Godzilla film.
Just as it's very easy to make a good Green Lantern film.
In terms of Godzilla, you just need two things. He has to be fucking Godzilla. He has to be pretty much invulnerable and breathe atomic breath, etc. And he has to fight something cool. And he has to appear for more than fucking 10 minutes.
In his own film.
He has
his own return to cinema.
He has to be more than a minor character in his own movie.
More than a supporting character in his own fucking return to American cinema. Yeah, I agree.
Now, with all of that said, we saw the film, and I'll try my best to avoid... it's going to be hard to avoid spoilers, because...
Yeah, I guess...
if you haven't seen the film... I guess
this will be a spoiler-filled review. Yeah. There's no way to necessarily get down to the meat of why we dislike the film.
Explain our grievances with the film without going into spoiler territory. So I suppose if you haven't seen the film yet, I guess...
Well, I'm not going to say go watch it, because
go watch it.
I can't
in good conscience listen, as an enormous Godzilla fan, as a hardcore Godzilla fan, as someone who has seen every single movie, grew up with Godzilla, I can't recommend this movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it, and I come from a different spectrum, or even as not a dedicated Godzilla fan.
As a lover of film.
Just as someone who likes movies, I couldn't recommend wasting $15
It's simply not a good
Godzilla.
movie.
Yeah. Maybe find a torrent.
Maybe wait for a torrent.
Maybe wait for something.
Because I simply can't, in good conscience, recommend spending money.
So I guess, what is it specifically that bothered you about the movie? Because we have very similar reasons why.
Where do I start?
Why we dislike the film.
So, this film is very character-based, which is something of an understatement. More than 2/3 of this film focuses on the characters.
A bit of a misnomer, once we get down to the meat of it, really.
Yeah. So the film stars Bryan Cranston, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Elizabeth Olsen, Ken Watanabe. Those are the big stars in the film. Now, in the lead up to the film's release, everyone was really excited about Bryan Cranston, as was I. I mean, I'm a pretty big fan of Breaking Bad. I just recently saw the first season. I loved it. It was great. And he's a phenomenal actor. Easily, I would say, the best in the film. And his character is really interesting and really well acted.
He chews what he has. He chews the scenery.
He does very well with what he has. And what he has isn't the best material, but he elevates it.
We talk about this all the time, where, in my opinion, good actors can elevate subpar material.
Yeah.
To at least some degree.
And I would say that his material, the character that
terrible.
Bryan Cranston's playing, his material wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad.
It was decent.
But I definitely think that
he definitely gave it that extra oomph.
An actor of his caliber took it beyond what it probably was capable of being.
Beyond what it probably was written as.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's easily the best and most interesting character in the film, and spoilers, he dies like 30 minutes into the movie.
20. He's in it for like a solid 20 minutes.
And his death.
And it's an unceremonious death,
It's an unceremonious, shitty death.
Yeah.
And after he dies, he's kind of just forgotten about.
Yeah, he's not even mentioned after the point.
He's not even mentioned after the point, and his son, who is played by Aaron Taylor Johnson...
shows no reaction.
Doesn't really react, as you would expect.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, they're estranged in the film, but...
They are.
Jesus Christ.
But fucking Christ, man.
I don't know.
And on the subject of Aaron Taylor Johnson...
I think, in my opinion, probably the worst thing about the film, from the human perspective.
From the human perspective.
On the human perspective.
So, after Bryan Cranston dies, the film switches protagonists, to Aaron Taylor Johnson. He becomes the main character.
Becomes the lead. Film. Yeah.
And he is so uninteresting. I don't even really know how to describe him.
I can't even fault him.
I can't fault Aaron Taylor Johnson himself. He had nothing to work with.
He didn't have anything to work with.
I've seen interviews with him and Elizabeth Olsen, and it really seems like he didn't give a fuck about the movie. And I can't blame him.
How could he? Yeah.
His part was awful.
And here's
his
the thing.
Dialogue was awful. He had nothing to work with.
Yeah, let's preface this by saying that I think he's a good actor.
I haven't seen him in too much.
I have. I've seen him in two separate films. I've seen him in a film called Savages, and I've seen him in Kick-Ass, and I liked him in both films.
Yeah, I mean, the first Kick-Ass film was really well reviewed, and apparently one of the things that's so praised about that film is his performance.
Yeah, he was great.
I
don't think it was his fault.
Yeah, I believe you. I'll take your word for it.
There clearly just wasn't much for him to really sink his teeth into.
It wasn't a good part.
Yeah.
I mean, what can you tell me about his character?
We were talking when we left the theater.
What can you tell me about, what can anyone say about any of these characters? All I can say about Taylor Johnson's character is that he was in the army. He was an army guy.
He was a bomb disposal technician.
All I can say about Elizabeth Olsen's character is she was a nurse. All I can say about Ken Watanabe was he was a scientist, some kind of scientist.
Some sort of monster scientist.
There's never any, if you're going to make a movie that's focused on characters,
they never got beyond...
flesh them out and give them an arc.
Yeah. They never got beyond job description.
Yeah. These aren't characters so much as they're character types.
Even then, I don't even know what they're supposed to represent, to be honest, because they're so... the weird thing about the film is... We did play this game where we left the theater and we looked at each other and we said, as a joke, what can you tell me about Elizabeth Olsen's character? Shoot! Tell me.
All I could come up with was she was a fucking nurse.
Yeah, there's nothing to say.
There's nothing else. She had, Elizabeth Olsen is, I think she got the worst of it because she literally has no reason to be in the movie. You could cut Elizabeth Olsen out.
She's a total non-issue.
You could cut her out of the movie entirely and it would not suffer at all. There would be no significant consequences to doing that. So,
nothing. Yeah. The film would be left marginally untouched.
Yeah.
Without her presence, yeah.
I guess she just has no reason to be in there. And that kind of sucks because Olsen's a good actor. Unlike her sisters.
Isn't that weird, by the way?
It's pretty weird.
That fucking one of the Olsen twins. She's not a twin. She's an Olsen.
She's an Olsen sister.
Is going to be playing the Scarlet Witch.
Scarlet Witch. Yeah.
Age of Ultron. Pretty weird. Weird. I guess ultimately getting down to it, what really I guess disappointed us about Godzilla. There are a lot of things, but what we're getting
the biggest thing was we paid to see Godzilla.
Yeah.
And what we got was a bunch of army dudes doing army things.
Yeah.
And a inordinate focus on characters that
paper-thin
are literally impossible to give a fuck about.
And you know what's funny? It's weird when I hear... Sometimes I hear reviews, negative reviews about films, and typically one of the first things you hear is, I didn't like this film because paper-thin characters. And I'm going to admit that sometimes when I read a review like that, I tend to sort of not care. I tune out because, in my opinion, there has to be more as to why you dislike the film. Really? Paper-thin characters. It's such a blasé thing to say, paper-thin characters. But, dude, I swear to God, with Godzilla, paper thin fucking
those
characters.
characters truly were paper thin.
They didn't matter.
They were cardboard cutouts.
They weren't people.
And we were talking about this as we were watching the movie. Towards the end of the movie, he said, like, what is the arc here?
Yeah, there isn't one.
What are they after? What's going on? That film, those characters, it's seriously just a sequence of cardboard cutouts reacting to shit. They they barely have any motivation of their own or any arc.
Yeah, no character seems to be striving toward anything at all. So much as they're reacting to Godzilla's
just reacting to the presence of the kaiju in the film.
Yeah,
and
not doing a particularly great job of it.
Not doing a great job.
Not a very convincing job of being frightened by an enormous 500-foot fucking king of monsters. You know?
Yeah, and I mean, on the subject of Godzilla himself, as we said, I mean, we paid to see Godzilla, and the film was going for a sort of modern Jaws, where it would, show you glimpses of the monster, cut away, and then at the end of the film, at the final act, you would get the monster in full, and it would be awesome, and the payoff would be great.
Not quite.
Well,
not quite what we
we'll
got.
Take this. We'll take this in segments. So there's a scene in the film where one of the other kaiju in the film. There are two other kaiju besides Godzilla in the film. They're both called mutos. One is a male. One's a female. One flies. The other doesn't. One of the mutos is in a airport, I guess, or around an airport, wrecking the city around it. And Godzilla,
generally just being a kaiju.
Just being a kaiju.
Just being a kaiju.
Just being a kaiju. And Godzilla emerges from the ocean to face the Muto, and the reveal of Godzilla is awesome.
It's supposed to be... You know what it's supposed to be? That moment is supposed to be that like crowd-pleasing Avengers scene where you see them all in one shot for the first time.
And that moment was a crowd-pleasing Avengers scene.
Right.
We get the reveal. We get this huge panning, tracking shot of Godzilla, and it's fucking awesome. Everyone in the theater clapped and cheered.
Yeah.
Then, just as they're about to fight,
the
film
payoff.
cuts away.
Yeah.
It literally cuts away to
TV footage.
Elizabeth Olsen's, her character's house, and her child watching the fight, watching glimpses of the fight.
Watching TV footage
on
of the fight.
television.
Yeah.
Now, when they did that, it was kind of funny. They were subverting audience expectation. It was kind of funny. It was kind of cute. I went, oh, okay, you got me. Then there's another scene, quite a bit later in the film, where, again, like, the Muto is in a city.
Same shit.
Wrecking the city around it.
Yeah.
Godzilla emerges to face it. They're about to fight, and then they cut away.
Well, it probably would have been fine if you had done it once.
If they had done it once.
Could have been kind of clever and
witty. But they did it,
like three times. Yeah, they did it about 3 times.
And the second time they did it, I looked at you and said, okay, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. Well, which is weird because, the comparison that I keep making to this is that I feel like I compare this to the Mandarin reveal in Iron Man 3.
Iron Man 3.
Where, you've got this character that's got, decades of comic book history, who's an iconic Iron Man villain, and it feels like we're sort of working towards this reveal, right? This character that we've been waiting to see on film for so long. And then the joke is that he's this asshole stage actor named Trevor whatever, who's just up his own asshole. And it's hilarious. It's a really well done.
It's a really well done
subversion of your expectations.
Of audience expectation.
Yeah. That's an example of doing that.
That's an example of doing that well.
Godzilla, I feel like,
Godzilla did not do this well at all.
Attempted the same technique to sort of like play around with your expectations and give you this weird TV footage, and just didn't do it well.
Just failed miserably.
Yeah.
And the worst thing about this is they try to garner up as much tension, as suspense as they can for that big monster fight or reveal at the end of the film during the final act.
What a fight it was.
Not very well, mind you. There's no sense of suspense or tension in the film, in
Kappa.
my opinion. Yeah, Kappa. But we finally do get to see the Mutos and Godzilla fight. And the fight itself, for 2 reasons, isn't very good.
It's worse than not very good. It was
boring. It was boring.
Very boring.
So the first reason is
unexciting.
Even in the fight, they cut away from it. You get 10 seconds of Godzilla fighting the Mutos, and then you cut away to the army guys doing army things. Then another 10 seconds of Godzilla fighting the Mutos. Rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
There's no sense of flow to the battles.
You know what was really weird? There's a scene where they're fighting, and they cut back to Aaron Taylor and, I guess, his army bros.
His platoon.
Lugging the mechanical nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Like across a bridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back to Godzilla, back to the bridge. Back to Godzilla, back to the bridge. They did it, from what I remember, about 4 times. And I remember turning to you and saying, "We're still lugging this fucking bomb across the bridge?"
Yeah.
Really?
This film has it has a really bad sense of time in its editing.
Exactly. I feel like when you I'm gonna sort of get away from film here. I'm gonna go to comics. Let's say in comics, I guess since you don't necessarily typically an issue is comprised of 22 pages. 22 pages is the average standard comic book issue length. You've got a very defined set of time.
Yeah.
With which you tell your story. In other words, superfluous bullshit has to go.
Yeah,
you can't waste time on superfluous bullshit. You just can't do it.
You wouldn't show a panel of Batman, every shot of Batman walking up to a door and turning the knob. You would show Batman approaching the door, and then, being inside the building.
Yeah.
You wouldn't show that, entire sequence play out because it's time wasted.
You know what you would never do? You would never show me a panel of Batman closing the Batmobile door.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
I understand.
It's implied.
When, after he's in the building, after you've shown me that shot of him approaching the door,
right.
He opened it.
He opens the door.
I understand that.
There's no other way to physically get past the door without opening it.
Without opening
so
it.
So it's as an intelligent human being, I guess it's implied that, well, holy shit.
He opened the door.
He opened the door. So that's, in comics, it's called, economy of panels. Like panel economy is picking what you need to represent wisely in order to free up space to tell your story effectively. This film seems to have no
very poor economy of shots.
Yeah, no semblance of
sense of that.
Yeah,
no sense for that.
Really, really strange. And that's the thing. I feel like to some degree, and this is interesting because we are doing a review, but to some degree, a lot of what made this film so just lackluster is almost ineffable. There is a sense of... there's something off about the way this film was paced.
There's something off about the way the film was constructed.
That just feels disjointed and weird, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It just feels strange. You show me 30 seconds, not even, I'm being generous, 10 seconds of Godzilla biting into Muto's back.
10 seconds.
And then you haphazardly and awkwardly cut back to guys lugging a bomb over a bridge. And they do that 4 times.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
And, beyond just the weird cuts to the military people in the fight...
Who, by the way, you don't care about.
Who, by the way, you don't give a fuck
You're
about.
You're not there for them. You're there for Godzilla.
Exactly. Beyond that, the fight itself, on the rare, precious occasions where you do get, a decent stretch of uninterrupted time of Godzilla fighting the Mutos, just the fight itself, the choreography... isn't very good. We were talking about this before. So, a film I think we both loved. I absolutely loved this film, and he liked it too a lot. Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim...
Yeah.
Pacific Rim really did everything that this film
Pacific Rim is the one true Godzilla
Pacific
film.
Rim is the one true Godzilla film of the modern generation.
Yeah.
Now, going into Godzilla... I knew even when I was hyped for this film, I knew that the fights weren't going to be as good as they are in Pacific Rim because if you look at Godzilla, if you look at the timeline of these Godzilla films, in the films that were released in the 60s and 70s, which is known as the Showa era, the suits they were using were pretty lightweight, which allowed the actors in the suits a great deal of movement. So if you look at the fights in those movies, they're really beating the fuck out of each other. they're doing crazy wrestling shit and just these crazy fisticuffs, and it's awesome. Then you go look at films from the 80s and 90s, which is known as the Heisei era. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Where...
You're excused.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Japanese, man.
Japanese,
Not a
man.
native Japanese speaker. You look at those films where the suits are much heavier and much more restrictive of the actors' movements. So Godzilla and the kaiju in those films are very lumbering and slow because the actors simply weren't able to move much. One of the biggest complaints people have about the Heisei era is all of the fights are just beam wars, and there's a lot of beam shit
assholes
going.
chucking plasma at each other.
Assholes chucking plasma at each other.
SF4 Guile mirror match.
There's a lot of beam spam going on in those 80s to 90s Heisei era Godzilla films. And you look at the films that take place post 2000s, the Millennium films, and it's a decent mix of the two. The suits aren't quite as heavy. There's a bit more movement, but they are still kind of lumbering and slow. So contrast that to Pacific Rim, where the Jaegers and the Kaiju were very nimble. There are shots where the Jaegers and Kaiju are running at each other.
Well, not to cut you off there, but we talk about this, right? You know what's really perplexing about the way these characters move?
This is another great point.
Yeah, what's weird about the way these characters moved in the movie. So he was talking about, look, in the 80s, right? These older Godzilla films, these were practical effects. These were practical effects. These were men in suits.
Yeah, these were suits.
They had
physical
a
suits,
practical handicap that they had to sort of grapple with. Not so in the year 2014. These are CG characters.
These are CG characters.
So in Pacific Rim, you've got CG Jaegers. You've got CG. What do they call them in the film?
The Kaiju.
Yeah, did they go by a specific name? Just Kaiju. The Kaiju in the Jaegers, they moved really fluently. They moved organically. They were pretty limber for giant fucking cyborgs, for giant robots, right?
Monsters and robots.
And that's because it's CG, dude. You can do whatever the fuck you want with it.
CG.
Yeah, you have that freedom. You don't.
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
not bound to what a human physique can achieve in a extremely sweltering hot plastic suit, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that they move that way in this film, in an era where CG is proliferant and you can do whatever the fuck you want with these characters, make them as fast as you want, is perplexing. Like, why would you intentionally make this fight scene boring? I mean, do they want to give them a sense of heft and weight and momentum? I guess they are giant creatures, but it doesn't have to be boring as a result of it.
Had an incredible sense of weight and heft. That was one of the things I was talking to him about when I first saw the movie. Like, my God, this is one of the first kaiju films that I've ever believed. I saw them, and everything just has a weight and a heft and a momentum to it, and it's incredible. And I mean, this new Godzilla film, the monsters do have a weight, but at the expense of good fight choreography.
Yeah, exactly. It comes at the expense of good fight choreography.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they have to have heard about this by now, that Godzilla is a bit player in his own film.
Yeah.
But look, if you had teased us for essentially, because it is two Godzilla-free acts. The first act and the second act are entirely, for the most part. The first act is entirely Godzilla-free.
Entirely.
The second act, he pops up sporadically.
Yeah.
You get a shot of his scales, a shot of his tail,
a shot of his spines as he's swimming.
Very
to
Cloverfield in the worst way possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he appears in the third act. If that final fight scene had been great, if it had been expansive, and
I'm not going to say it would have made up for 2
it wouldn't
hours
have made
of
up for it.
bullshit, but it would have made it better.
It would have been something.
It would have given me a consolation prize.
Right, and I don't want to sound like grumpy internet critics because.
I mean, for fuck's sake, I love Godzilla.
Yeah.
I wanted to love this movie. I mean, he can tell you. I was texting him months leading up to this film, like, dude, this film is going to be awesome. Look at this fucking trailer. It's so sick. Yeah. I wanted so badly to love this movie. I wanted so bad for it to be good, and it just wasn't.
This movie was a victim of really, really strange decision-making all across the board.
Yeah.
So, we've talked about this, but this is, I think, for me, Godzilla's a bit player in his own film. The action scenes are less than stupendous. They're not, the action scenes, they're barely a thing. I mean, I would say in total, if you were to sum it all up.
One fight
there's about
in this movie.
I'd say about 2 minutes worth, if not 3, of actual good fighting, right?
3 minutes, yeah. I'd say that much.
But in a film that seems overly concerned with tackling human characters and putting the human characters at the forefront, why in the name of God would you kill off your most capable actor?
Why would you do
in
that?
the first 20 minutes?
Why would you kill off the best actor in the movie?
That seems like a
bizarre
decision. Why would you kill off your
most interesting character?
Right.
And not even in a dignified
I'm not
way.
saying...
He gets unceremoniously.
He gets unceremoniously fucked by a bridge.
Yeah. He kind of just falls off a fucking bridge.
He just goes, ha, ha. He just gets fucked.
And just falls.
But here's the thing. I'm not saying that a Bryan Cranston filled Godzilla would have made it a good movie.
It
but
would have made
fuck's
it
sake,
better.
It would have made it a little better. Yeah. Because
give
again,
me Bryan Cranston as the main protagonist of this film, because Taylor Johnson clearly didn't give a fuck.
I like him as an actor. and I'm sure he's going to do a great job as Quicksilver, which I'm excited about because he looks great.
Sure.
But he clearly was not very interested in the source material.
Clearly didn't give a fuck.
Kind of didn't care.
Didn't care.
And it showed. Cranston,
on the other hand,
really
really sunk his teeth into his part.
Pun unintended, but really did kind of bite into it and really
He's the most memorable thing about the film, honestly.
More than Godzilla,
in terms of characters,
which is ridiculous.
Oh, I mean, the breath, the atomic breath.
There was that, but I mean, overall, I remember I left the theater and I looked at him and I remember telling him I was kind of cheering for the Muto. More than Godzilla. In a Godzilla film, I kind of wanted the Muto to win.
You know how you've written terrible characters. Taylor Johnson's character is married to Elizabeth Olsen's, their husband and wife. The Mutos are essentially mates. They're a male and female.
Yeah.
They're going to reproduce. They are a better couple. They are a better, more interesting couple than Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
That's pretty not okay.
When your monsters are more sympathetic than your humans, that's really weird.
Yeah. So I guess
when I give a shit about the villain kaiju of this film more than I do the fucking humans, that's not good.
And it's interesting because we can use this as a nice segue to get into another topic that I want to talk about. We talk about Pacific Rim versus Godzilla and what Pacific Rim did well that Godzilla did. And what a lot of things.
Pacific Rim did everything better than Godzilla.
But
I loved the characters in Pacific Rim.
Yeah. One of the things that I, at least, personally, really, really was disappointed at in Godzilla is Godzilla looked fine. But the Muto was really, they were boring.
The Muto
Visually
was boring.
Various,
the Muto
boring.
was literally just a black Cloverfield monster.
Yeah, kind of aesthetically boring looking. And I'm going to use this as a segue to talk about the X-Men. Mm-hmm. Specifically Days of Future Past. Yeah. Which is a film that... now you're going to listen to me, bitch.
I'm going to let the boy cook. Go ahead.
But, look, the Muto were aesthetically unimpressive. They were kind of boring to look at. They were monochromatic. They were just kind of like a big black mass.
You couldn't really make out much detail from either them or Godzilla.
Yeah.
They both were kind of just big black blobs.
Yeah. But we were talking about this before. Part of what made Pacific Rim so much fun, it had this jovial sense of adventure about it. I mean, I like to compare it to me, it felt like a live-action manga. It felt like a big live-action manga in the best way possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think part of that is character design, bright and welcoming and warm and fun aesthetic
awesome
designs. I mean, we were talking about how a lot of the secondary and tertiary characters don't have much to say, but you remember them because they look exciting. They look fun.
The pilots of Crimson Typhoon and Cherno Alpha, two of the Jaegers in the film, they have virtually no lines.
They're not saying much.
However,
you know what I mean?
They convey more
personality.
They convey more personality
and character
with just their few scenes and the few the visuals that they have than anybody did in Godzilla.
Yeah, Godzilla was sort of a very
there's one scene
visually
in
boring film.
There's one scene in Pacific Rim where you're shown the Shatterdome and you get this big sweeping shot of Cherno Alpha and it goes down to its pilots and they're kind of like they're walking with this swagger and there's more personality in that one shot than there is in all of the characters in Godzilla.
Yeah, and I guess using that to segue into X-Men, I make no secret of the fact that I hate the X-Men films. I think they're fucking terrible. I think they're terrible. I know a lot of people think they're pretty good. They get a pretty solid critical response.
Yeah, those first two films have 80s on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, they always seem to have 80s and 90s. Days of Future Past is a 90.
New one is a 90, yeah.
Yeah. Now, look, I'm one of the biggest X-Men fans you could ever hope to come across. As I say this, I'm staring at a giant statue of Cable that I lovingly and willingly paid for.
Yep.
I'm staring at a statue of Cyclops. I'm staring at a statue of Deathlock. I'm staring at a statue of Sentinel. I'm staring at a fucking Havoc statue. I am one of the biggest X-Men fan you could come across.
Yep.
I wear that shit with pride. The X-Men are awesome. They're one of my favorite Marvel entities. They're one of my favorite comic book entities. Yeah. So, if you were to ask me what is it about the X-Men that's fascinating, there's a lot of things to name, and I'm not going to get into that bag of worms, but I would say that just aesthetically, just superficially, their look. The X-Men have some of the best character and
Some of the
costume
best character
designs
in comics.
in all of comics.
So colorful, so interesting, so captivating.
Yeah.
They're really awesome, just
Yeah.
aesthetically.
They're really aesthetically pleasing to look at. They're fun. They grab your attention. Jubilee, Wolverine, Beast, these characters.
And, yeah, I mean, that's probably the best way to describe it. They're fun.
Yeah.
They manage to convey a sense of fun with just their costumes and their looks.
Which is why I made the segue, because the Pacific Rim characters were fun to look at. They represented, they imparted a sense of fun and character and personality just through their aesthetic.
Just through their aesthetic.
Yeah, which is, I guess, if I were to, I guess, sort of, name my reasons. Why do I dislike the X-Men films? Very high on that list, the X-Men films are very visually boring.
Like, yeah.
They look bad.
Look awful.
Yeah, I mean...
Just black jumpsuits, really...
Black leather jumpsuits. They look like bikers. They look like fucking bikers, right? I mean, there's a line in Grant Morrison's New X-Men, which is one of my favorite X-Men arcs ever, which actually informed the attitude and the aesthetic that the X-Men would take for a very long time, even going into Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men run. There's a line where, they're wearing the black jumpsuits, rather, in the New X-Men run. I made a mistake. It's in the Astonishing X-Men run.
Okay.
They're wearing the black in New X-Men, and then when Astonishing comes around, Joss Whedon has Cyclops make this line about how we have to ditch the black leather because it's scaring people.
Yeah.
Like, we're not...
I remember that.
Yeah, we're not bikers. We're superheroes, and we're meant to inspire, and we're meant to impart a sense of warmth. And the black, it ain't doing it. Not doing it.
Not cutting it.
So, cut, to the next page, and they're all in their traditional yellow and blue badass X-Men, fun-looking garb. These X-Men films, I guess, in a bid for realism, because that's why I go to watch X-Men films, by the way.
I want to see realism.
That realism.
Films.
Yep. A film about a man that
I want to see realism in my superhero films. That's what I want.
That's why I go to fucking superhero films for the realism. But I guess in a bid to, sort of impart a sense of realism, instead of wearing the classic yellow and blue, they're wearing these ridiculous-looking biker black jumpsuits.
There's even this line in the first X-Men, which I'm sure you remember. That's frankly insulting.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, everyone's on the X-Jet.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And it is insulting.
Wolverine is kind of fidgeting with his costume.
Yeah.
He's like bitching about it. And Cyclops says,
What would you rather? What would you prefer?
Yellow spandex.
Yellow spandex? You know what?
Yeah, I would prefer yellow spandex.
I would prefer the yellow spandex.
Maybe then your film wouldn't look so fucking boring and dull.
Visually miserable. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously just one of the reasons why I dislike the films.
There are many, but
there are
many reasons to dislike those films.
It's very, very high on the list.
Yeah,
I think
it's up there.
Marvel as a universe, we talk about this all the time. The Marvel universe versus the DC universe are defined by a very, very stark tonal shift.
Yeah.
The Marvel universe is a very
colorful,
vibrant,
very bright.
and
There's
very
a sense of fun that you get just by looking at it. Whereas the DC universe is very dark, dour. Colors are muted.
Somber.
Yeah.
Very muted color palette. And that's fine, because we were talking about this just the other day.
Yeah.
They're different companies. They're different publishers.
Do different things, and that's okay. I like that they do different things.
Yeah.
I can read a Marvel comic, and have fun. Just go on this crazy, colorful, bright, fun adventure. And then I can read a DC comic.
And I can fuck off to DC and enjoy a really dark detective story.
Noir, crazy story.
Exactly. The DC universe, comparably, is
I think those two companies complement each other.
Yeah. I think
it's great that they're so different.
Why would you want them to be similar? I don't get it. I've heard that a lot. I've heard a lot of people
that's one of the things I hear now that Marvel as a film studio
is reaching that
so
level
big,
of success. Yeah.
One of the things you hear the most is, "Oh man, I wish DC could be more like Marvel."
Yeah, which is a ridiculous thing to want.
Maybe on film, but
well, I mean, in terms of their business strategy.
Yeah.
Not so much in terms of tone or aesthetic.
I don't want DC to be Marvel.
No.
If DC tried to be Marvel, it would be bad. If Marvel tried to be DC, it would be bad.
That's ridiculous. It's not to say that because it's dark, it's not fun. It's dark. We were talking about this maybe like a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
Dark is harder to pull off than fun.
Dark is
really is.
And that kind
dark is harder to pull off than fun.
That kind of segues back into Godzilla and Pacific Rim.
Yeah, exactly.
Pacific Rim was not lighthearted, but it was a very fun, jovial.
It was fun though. That whole scene with Ron Perlman and I'm forgetting the other character, the scientist.
Newt.
Yeah, like that shit was hilarious.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
It was really off the wall
Rim,
and
it's
zany.
not lighthearted, but it was fun and energetic, and there was just this sense of joy and adventure.
Yeah.
Godzilla is
Very somber.
It's pretty somber.
Yeah.
And I mean,
very dark.
Dark. It's not intrinsically worse than fun.
No,
or
absolutely not.
Fun isn't intrinsically
I love
better
me. Listen,
than dark.
Anyone who knows me knows that I love me a dark fucking detective story.
Love
I love crime
dark
fiction
stories and dark fiction.
I love noir. It's I have a passion for it. But
the thing is, dark is harder to pull off than fun. And when you fail at pulling off dark,
it's worse.
It really sucks.
It really sucks. Yeah, you can go watch a comedy. And laugh at 5 out of 20 jokes.
Yeah.
And feel like you had a good time.
Yeah.
But if you go to watch, a dark crime fiction film, and it kind of fails to deliver, that comes across as like a miserable experience.
That's a bad experience.
It's a miserable viewing experience. Yeah, it really is. So it's not that dark is intrinsically inferior. It's harder to pull off. It is harder to pull off. It really is. It requires a certain level of writing to be successful.
Yeah. And Godzilla didn't have it.
Godzilla did
not have it.
Yeah. But I guess tying the two together, X-Men Days of Future Past and Godzilla, what worries me about these films is that they're doing very well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The X-Men franchise on film does phenomenally well financially, and Godzilla...
If ever there was a film franchise, I know people are very scared of the word reboot, but in my opinion, if ever there was a franchise right now that needed a fucking
needs to be
reboot...
rebooted, yeah.
It's the X-Men.
Yeah,
It's the fucking X-Men. You know why? I'll give you an example. The Wolverine, which I liked. Yeah. Right? Was a good movie.
The Wolverine was one of the only X-Men films that we actually...
The only two X-Men films that I
First Class.
Are First Class and the Wolverine.
And the Wolverine. Yeah. That's it.
There's a scene in the Wolverine that feels completely unnecessary and tacked on, which is very early on when Wolverine is sleeping in a tent and he has this dream about Jean Grey. That, to me, just feels like fucking baggage. It just feels like baggage that has to sort of, I guess, be thrown in there to impart some sense of continuity.
You of, hey, we did 3 films
Remind you of
this.
some sense of continuity that it exists within the same world. And I feel like that's the word for the X-Men right now. The X-Men film franchise is baggage. It's becoming overloaded with baggage. Characters.
It's just bullshit that they need to kind of throw in there to remind the audience and say, hey, we did all this shit before.
Yeah, it's that film, in my opinion, that franchise needs a fresh start.
It does.
It really does. And what it needs, more importantly, is to be wrestled away from Fox. It's not going to happen anytime soon.
That's not going to happen anytime
soon. It needs to be wrestled away from Fox.
Fox, yeah, it's going to be a while, if ever. Until Fox and Sony give
but
the rights
what
to
frightens me
as Spider-Man, respectively.
Oh yeah. But what frightens me about these films, as I was saying, is Godzilla and X-Men, they're doing well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're selling a lot of tickets.
X-Men...
And they're not getting a bad critical reception. Godzilla is sitting at a 72.
X-Men currently has a 90
on Rotten Tomatoes, and X-Men Days of Future Past has a 90, last time I checked, on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Which is...
And
wow.
What sucks about that is Godzilla was terrible. Just... It was
awful. Yeah, it was not a good
Days of Future Past is probably also going to be terrible.
I'll say this about Days of Future Past. It looks to be much better than the other X-Men films.
It does.
That's not saying much.
But that's not saying much.
But it does look to be a step in a better direction.
That's kind of akin to saying that this new Godzilla film was better than the 98 film.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sure, but
that's
like saying 20,000 pounds of 20,000 tons of shit is better than 15,000 tons of
shit. It's worth noting.
It's better, but still a lot of shit.
Doesn't amount to much at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to hate about this X-Men franchise, man. I mean, most importantly, in my opinion, I think really, really poorly cast, I think, for the most part.
The only good casting decision Fox made with the X-Men franchise was Hugh Jackman as Wolverine.
I legitimately love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine.
He is an awesome Wolverine. He's probably the best we're ever going to get, and it sucks.
It sucks that he's
wasted on these shitty Fox X-Men films.
It does suck that he's squandered on a really bad franchise.
That really sucks.
Yeah. Because imagine Hugh Jackman in an Avengers film.
A Marvel X-Men film.
Imagine
or the Avengers.
Can you imagine?
That would be incredible. I would lose my shit over that.
But I mean, you've got fucking Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique, which I think, I don't like her in the role. You've got Halle fucking Berry as Storm, which by the way, I'm not even gonna get started on that.
Yeah, because we've got a lot to say about that
because Josh has heard me bitch about that for years, and it's not going to end anytime soon.
Not like Halle Berry
I fucking hate Halle Berry. I think she's a terrible actress, and I think Hollywood needs to
tell her to fuck off.
Yeah, but what Hollywood needs to do is understand that there's more than one black actress in the world.
Yeah.
There's more than just Halle Berry,
there's
motherfuckers.
More than just Halle Berry.
Yeah.
There are a lot more black actresses out there, and
it doesn't begin and end with Halle Berry.
99% of them are better than fucking Halle Berry.
Absolutely.
Christ. Christ.
But I mean, Sean Ashmore as Iceman. Are you fucking kidding me? Real talk. That's fucked up. That's fucked up.
The only other casting choice that Fox made with the X-Men franchise that I like, or kind of like, is what's her name?
Ellen Page as Shadowcat.
Ellen Page as Shadowcat.
Yeah.
I think she looks the part.
I think she's okay.
I think she has the personality. I think she makes a good Shadowcat. That's pretty much it. Hugh Jackman and
remember
Ellen
how
Page.
fucking like shithouse terrible the Juggernaut was in X-Men 3?
Oh my god! Don't even get me started on that fucking shit. That was god awful.
Let's not open that can of worms, man.
Let's keep Pandora's box
Let's
closed.
keep Pandora's box closed. But yeah, I guess. And here's the thing: this train of fucking filth and garbage and disrespect to source material, it's not going to stop.
Of course
Age
not.
of Apocalypse is being written as we speak.
Yeah.
And Godzilla film, the Godzilla sequel,
2 has just been confirmed.
has already been confirmed.
And that sucks ass, because Godzilla 2 has just been confirmed today. Pacific Rim 2, probably not going to happen.
The dread effect.
Soon,
The dread
least.
effect. A
Yeah.
sequel, a movie that legitimately deserves a sequel, doesn't get it.
Doesn't get it. Whereas this fucking steaming pile of turbo fuck is like on track for one the day after it gets released.
Yeah.
That's pretty great.
And it's interesting because
And you know what? Like,
people...
we saw The Amazing Spider-Man 1 in theaters when it came out.
Yeah.
And we didn't particularly like it.
Didn't think it was
We
great. Wasn't
thought
awful.
We
but
thought it was okay.
was okay.
We were like, we looked at each other after the movie was done and went, eh.
Which is rare for us.
Yeah, it's very rare.
Because we tend to like all of the movies we watch, really.
Yeah, I mean, we typically only go out to a theater if
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
gonna like a movie.
If I know that it's up my alley.
Yeah.
So it's very rare. Like 95% of the time,
if I see a film
end
in
up in-
theaters, I like it.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man 1, I didn't dislike. I thought it was just
It
kind of...
was okay.
It was there. It
Yeah,
existed.
I mean, it was okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't so bad that like it would preclude me from seeing the sequel. He saw the sequel.
It didn't for me.
I have
Yeah.
yet to see it.
I watched it.
But Godzilla, it wasn't even okay. It was fucking awful.
Yeah.
And I mean, normally I would say, well, okay, they can. Normally I would say, well, okay, they've got room to improve. They can potentially improve for the sequel. I'm not going to see Godzilla 2. I'm not going to see that fucking movie.
Yeah.
I have no impetus to.
Yeah, that was bad to the point where I can't really justify
that was
watching a
bad to the
sequel.
point where I'm not interested anymore.
Whereas with Spider-Man, it wasn't great.
But it wasn't terrible.
It didn't keep me from watching the sequel. And I'll say this, I was talking to Josh about this. I completely disagree with Rotten Tomatoes on Amazing Spider-Man 2.
It's got 53 right now.
It's got a 53. Amazing Spider-Man 1 has a 73. Which I would probably reverse those scores if it was up to me. I think Amazing Spider-Man 2 was wholesale better than Amazing Spider-Man 1.
Yeah,
The Gwen Peter Parker dynamic was much better in 2 than it was in 1. It was good in 1. One of the only good things about the film. But it was much better in 2 even. It was more fleshed out, it was better. The fight scenes were a lot better. They were more coherent. They looked a lot better. Everything about Amazing Spider-Man 2 was a lot better, and I don't understand the critique. The critique is the general opinion is too many villains. The Spider-Man 3 dilemma. Couldn't disagree more because for the most part, Electro is the major villain. Electro is the central villain, right?
Green Goblin's in there, but he's got like
Dude, Green Goblin is in the film for 10 minutes.
He's in there for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And the
Spoilers.
Rhino is in there for even less.
For
Correct?
anyone who's seen Rhino's in the film for 4 minutes.
Yeah. So
if I'm being generous.
I mean, I haven't seen the film yet, so I can't truly vouch for or against
You've got
that, but-
Electro, who's the central villain. We're introduced to him very early on. His motivation is established.
Yeah.
His character arc is established. And for the most part, he's the central villain. Green Goblin is introduced much later into the film. I mean, Harry Osborn is introduced very early on. He's present throughout the film, but
he doesn't become the Green Goblin until the final
take
act.
on the transformation until the third act. And I mean, the fight scene between him and Spider-Man is good, but it's very short.
Yeah.
It's like a minute and 30
He
seconds.
just gets his shit wrecked.
He just kind of gets his shit fucked. He just kind of gets fucked. So I don't understand that complaint because the Rhino pops up in the beginning of the movie, and gets thrown away in jail. Spider-Man stops him. This is before he has the suit. He's just kind of a mobster. And of course, the Rhino is famously described by the co-creator of Spider-Man alongside Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, as Spider-Man's dimmest foe. That is Steve Ditko's description of Rhino is Spider-Man's...
From the horse's mouth.
From the horse's mouth, Spider-Man's dimmest fucking foe. He's not intelligent.
He's not a smart guy.
Not supposed to represent a significant threat to Spider-Man in any capacity, really.
In the round table of Spider-Man villains, you would have Green Goblin,
Kraven, Carnage, Venom.
Venom.
I mean, Spider-Man,
Doc Ock, Mysterio.
I think, has the second best rogues gallery in comics. If you ask me, Batman coming
right
first,
after Batman.
and Spider-Man coming in second.
But in that round table,
Rhino
Rhino would be the one who would be at the meeting asking, "Where's you said there'd be pie? Where's pie?"
Doc Ock's like, "Oh
Doc
my
Ock would just be like,
God.
"Oh God, please
Dude,
shut the fuck up,
shut
you goddamn idiot."
We're trying to plan.
Listen, let the big boys plan the fucking move. You can go outside and play with some goddamn blocks. Just fuck off.
And here's the thing:
please.
There's nothing wrong with having a character like that. I like villains like that because I feel like it
makes
bolsters
the villains who are a true threat that much more
appear,
that much deadly.
Fearsome. Exactly, exactly right. So, I'm glad that they kept that much intact. The Rhino is very stupid in Amazing Spider-Man 2. He's very dumb. He gets caught in the first 3 minutes, thrown in jail, and then he's given a Rhino suit by spoilers, Green Goblin and some mysterious guy.
Some dude.
Yeah.
Who they're setting up for
Remember in Amazing Spider-Man 1, the guy then is like, "Did you tell Peter about his father?" That guy. Like, he's being billed as, like, Mystery Man. Literally, in the credits, mysterious guy. Man. Mysterious dude. But they're forming the Sinister Six. That's what they're building towards. Which, by the way, feels wholly and utterly unearned.
The Sinister Six feels analogous to what WB is doing with the Justice League.
A rush job.
Yeah, they're rushing it.
Yeah.
In WB's attempts to catch up on the Avengers, they're rushing. They're getting all of these characters, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, etc., into this film, and it's just not going to be good.
You know what I think? And I've thrown this theory around a lot, and everyone that I describe it to, they tend to agree, and I think I do believe in it very much. I think that Marvel Studios believes in their projects 100%. They believe in what they're doing. They believe in their movies, and they're making them for a very specific reason. Meanwhile, I think WB is trying to make superhero films while they think there's money to be made in them. I don't think that WB believes in superhero films as a legitimate
I think WB thinks
genre.
That superhero films are a fad.
That's a fad.
Super big now.
Yeah.
But the bubble's going to burst.
Yes.
And when it does, they're out.
Exactly. That's a theory that I've been throwing out for a long time. Because it's indicative of how they approach their films. Dark Knight trilogy not included. It's the lone exception.
That's the lone exception,
But I think that WB sees superhero films as a bubble, a fad, and that it'll pop eventually. And they want to get in and make money while there's a killing to be made. Yeah. Whereas Marvel Studios genuinely believes that this isn't a fad, that the characters are great, and that their arcs are great, and that these decades of comics have a right to be put on film, and that it's something that can be, adapted for years and years to come. I mean, Kevin Feige has said time and time again that they've got Marvel movies lined up for like a decade or two.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And yeah, I 100% agree with everything you're saying. Marvel, you can feel the passion behind everything they do. You can feel the passion and just the respect for these characters because, hey, they fucking created them.
And it's interesting because I feel like we have to make this distinction before people feel like...
Yeah, I mean, we're not shitting on DC. We both like DC, and we wish DC would have creative control of their properties, but they don't. It's WB. We fucking hate. WB. DC does not have their own film studio. Yeah. Marvel does. So Marvel has a degree of creative freedom and creative control that just isn't afforded to DC.
Yeah.
DC is kind of just along for the ride.
They're along for the ride.
Warner Brothers are the ones who are calling the shots.
They're making the shots. Yeah. I mean,
which is why you get awful shit like fucking Green Lantern.
Yeah. I mean, I've made this point before, and I genuinely believe in it. I think right now, if you went to DC headquarters right now, and you spoke to Dan DiDio, and you spoke to Jim Lee, and you spoke to Jeff Johns, and all the higher-ups, if you asked any of them right now if they legitimately, like for real, like no nod, no wink wink, if they actually thought that Ben Affleck was the right choice for Batman...
Off the books, off the record.
Off the books, they would all say no. Holy shit, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
The guy from Geely? Probably not, dude. And
Daredevil?
And here's the thing, I don't hate Ben Affleck. I've seen a lot of interviews with him. He seems like a smart, well-spoken dude.
Ben Affleck is a very well-spoken, very intelligent man, and he's a very good director.
He's a hell of a director.
He's a better director than Zack Snyder.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's a pretty good actor.
He's
as
a
well.
hell of a director.
He's
just not
Batman.
He's just not right for Batman.
I don't see Batman when I look at Ben Affleck. I mean, Ben Affleck.
I see Ben Affleck when I look at Ben
Affleck when I look at Ben Affleck.
But yeah, and that's the thing. That is WB at work. It's WB at work. WB feels like in order to get the female constituent in that seat, in order to get their asses into that seat, that they need a Ben Affleck. They need that kind of guy.
Which is patronizing as fuck to women, by the way.
It is, but they feel like they need that. They need that guy.
Gotta get the hot guy.
Yeah.
Gotta get the stud who's gonna bring in all the women.
Yeah, which is obviously ridiculous, but it's sad.
I mean, which isn't to say that like Christian Bale wasn't a stud. He was, but
he's a good-looking dude.
Yeah, but he was right for the part.
Yeah.
He played a phenomenal Batman and a phenomenal Bruce Wayne.
And a phenomenal idiot Bruce Wayne. Asshole Bruce Wayne.
Fucking
the Bruce
Patrick
Wayne,
Bateman Bruce.
The Bruce Wayne that the public gets to see.
Patrick Bateman Bruce. Patrick Bateman without the homicide.
I've always said that the Bruce Wayne playing Batman / Bruce Wayne is you're playing three characters. You're playing Batman, you're playing Bruce Wayne, and you're playing
douche Bruce.
You're playing, the public Bruce, public persona Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
The kind of guy who goes, well, I own this.
You've got to be able to pull off all three of those parts
right.
if you want to be successful as Batman. And Christian Bale did it well.
The only guy to ever nail all three, because you know what? I think Michael Keaton was a great Batman, but he was a terrible Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
awful
terrible Bruce Wayne.
And Val Kilmer, I think.
Was a good Bruce Wayne.
He
but
was
a
a very good,
horrible Batman.
Yeah, awful Batman, very good Bruce Wayne. Christian Bale is the only one who has been able so far to pull off all three
Nails
parts.
all three, yeah.
I don't know what Ben Affleck's going to be able to pull off. Maybe Bruce Wayne. Certainly not Batman. I do not see that happening at all.
I think he'll do a good Bruce Wayne.
I think he'll do a decent Bruce Wayne. Yeah.
Batman's a tough sell.
Batman's going to be hard.
Batman's a tough sell.
It's going to be hard.
So, well, we're there. We're on the topic. Let's talk about the suit, man.
Yeah,
that's
suit.
Big news right now, right?
So we're a bit divided here.
Yeah, we're divided.
He really likes the suit.
I think it looks great.
He likes the suit. I kind of don't. Maybe it's just because of the one picture that we have of it is colorless, so I can't really, it will probably look better with color. But
people have made Photoshop mock-ups of it in color, and it looks fucking great. Try to pull one up. Let's pull it up on Google right now, so we have a frame of reference as we talk about it.
Let's see this.
You know what, man? I think that suit looks great. I think Batman vs Superman is going to be a fucking disaster because they're rushing it, and the film up to this point is being cast very poorly. So I don't think that it has a chance of being really great. But as objective, and that's the thing. Like I'm one of the biggest Batman fans in the world. But I'm saying objectively as to how I feel about the film, I think that suit looks great. Objectively about, despite how I feel about Ben Affleck as Batman and Bruce Wayne, which is not good, I think that suit looks fucking great.
Yeah, I mean,
type in color.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll have to see it in color before I can make a final judgment.
I mean, look, final judgment is still,
it's still pending.
It's still pending because I have to see it from more angles.
One thing we both agree looks like shit.
That's
is
actually,
the ears.
you see that, and we'll put this up in the video. This is one of the costumes that this costume is taking a lot of inspiration from. Is the Batman Noel suit, smaller ears, more rugged look.
I can totally see that. I can totally.
This is the Batman vs Superman suit is taking inspiration from two sources: Dark Knight Returns Batman and Batman Noel. Yeah. And looking at that, you can definitely see the shape of the cowl, the shorter ears, the more rugged look to the suit, more leathery cape. Because the suit, the cape in this new Batman looks a little more like a tougher material. Yeah, whereas in the Dark Knight trilogy, it's more of like a silk almost. It's
it's very sinuous,
very free flowing. Yeah. So that suit is taking inspiration from Batman Noel and the Dark Knight Returns. I mean, the new Batman suit has got the very, very big Dark Knight Returns symbol on the chest. Obviously, this is the biggest, most physically intimidating Batman we've ever had on screen, just in terms of raw musculature.
Yeah, definitely. And
he looks very big.
We were talking about
which is obviously a nod to the Dark Knight Returns.
We were talking about this when we went to see Godzilla. However you may feel about
Batman, exactly.
Batman, you have to respect the fact that he put on a lot of fucking muscle.
He's clearly.
I didn't even know. I didn't think that that was in his physique.
Right. Yeah.
He looks the part.
However you may feel about Ben Affleck in the role, you can't say that he's not taking it seriously.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of his physique, he now looks the part.
Yes. So quite so. That dude is very big. in that picture.
mean, good shit to him.
I mean, I remember I went to several sites, and I've been through a lot of forums for all the sites. And everyone is hung up on two things. A, Christ, that looks like a Jim Lee drawing. I can't believe they did it. Like, for the first time ever, we've got a live-action Batman that looks like a fucking Jim Lee drawing. And that's what Kevin Smith said back in Comic-Con when they first revealed this. When Kevin Smith said, you guys are going to be blown away because it looks like a Jim Lee drawing.
Yeah, and he also said it like looks really different from anything that was...
Which it does, because this is the first time ever that we've had a non-armored Batman on film.
That's true, yeah.
This is the first time we've ever had a Batman who looks to be wearing the same sort of material that he wears in the comics.
In the comics, or the
sort of a
series.
reinforced bodysuit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
like
as opposed to body armor.
Almost a Kevlar fabric, like a bulletproof reinforced fabric.
Exactly, yeah. Which allows you to get the musculature, the sinew, which makes part of the reason why Ben Affleck looks so physically formidable and physically imposing is. This guy, you can see, like, the musculature on his arms. You can see he's got, like, this fucking crazy flex on his thigh. The dude looks pretty jacked.
Yeah, I mean...
I'd be scared if that guy landed next to me in an alley.
Again, good shit to Ben Affleck for really taking that role seriously. And just turning his physique into that.
Let's pull up the suit, because there are a couple things that I want to talk about it. So, overall, I like it very much. Josh is not too big of a fan right now. But there is one thing that I have to say. And I actually want to get a high contrast look at it. If we type in Batman Ben Affleck suit high contrast, because some people have done a great job of brightening it up a bit, so we can get a really good look at it. But like this one right here, which is nice. So yeah, looking at this, that is easily the most physically imposing
Yeah,
Batman.
That's the most physically imposing Batman.
Look at his fucking bicep, dude. I didn't know Ben Affleck had that in him.
I didn't know Ben Affleck had that in him.
Yeah.
I didn't know his physique could do that. I mean, again, like, good shit to him.
Yeah.
He is taking this part seriously.
I think the one thing we can both agree on is the Batmobile looks
fucking sick. The Batmobile looks sick.
Yeah.
The Batmobile is really hard to fuck up.
Oh, they've done it, dude. The Michael Schumacher Batmobiles were ass.
I don't remember what it looked like.
They were terrible looking. They were neon and fucking creepy looking. They looked very Joel Schumacher.
All I can really remember about those Batmobiles is they kind of looked like Hot Wheels toys. That's all I can really remember. I can't I can't pick out like details of them, but they sort of looked like Hot Wheels toys.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. That they definitely do. But what's interesting, what I like about this Batmobile. To me, it looks like a merger of Christopher Nolan's Tumbler. It's got the ruggedness of the Tumbler.
It does.
Giant
with like
wheels,
the kind of really like angular, pointy,
sleek
design
contoured,
of the Burton,
and also the Batman animated series.
Oh yeah,
which is very like long, had the big canopy, which you can see here. It's got the same kind of. And I imagine if you look at the top of the canopy, there's a slit. I imagine that opens.
That'll open, and that's probably how he gets in and out. Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, like, going down the list, and we'll put up an image here for the video so you guys can see what we're talking about. Like, there's a lot that I like about this suit, man. Like, first of all, for the first time ever...
I mean, like, looking at this picture, I guess with more high contrast, it looks pretty good.
I like it a lot, dude. So, yeah... I think this thing looks fucking great. Like, for the first time ever...
The only thing that still irks me is just the ears.
I agree. I agree with you there. I think the ears... And it's not the height. It's not the height, because...
I think it is the height.
For me, it's not the height. It's the build. I think they look kind of cheap. It's the way... And again, it might just be the angle, because Noel Batman did short ears. Greg Capullo does short Batman ears, and they make it look good. But that's because, they're drawing it.
Yeah, of course.
And they can mold it to however they want. It's not the height. I'm used to a short-eared Batman. Dark Knight Returns is one of my favorite Batman comics ever, and they're very short in Dark Knight Returns. Yeah. To me, it's the build. They look a little cheap. The ears look cheap. Yeah, they look really rubbery.
I have to say, I'm not a fan of short ears. I'm not a fan of long ears either. I just kind of like.
You're a medium ear guy.
Medium ear guy. I like the medium length.
I like them short. Okay. We were at the theater waiting to see Godzilla, and I was talking about how I like a rugged Batman. And look at that Paul Pope Batman statue I have over there. Yeah. See how the ears are short, and like, there's something about the way that Paul Pope draws Batman, very basic. Gloves, leather cape, rope, big military boots, short ears. It looks compact and rugged.
It looks almost militaristic, and like in terms of its ergonomics, it looks functional.
Exactly, very functional. Not high tech, but very like
functional,
gritty and functional. But I love the gloves. I love the way the gloves look.
The gauntlets do look sick.
The gauntlets look sick. I think it looks great. I think it looks. I really do. I was surprised by how much I liked the suit. I wasn't expecting to like it. I wasn't expecting to like anything about this movie. Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, looking at it now, it does. I don't know why, but it does look quite a bit better.
Yeah, I think this thing looks awesome. I really do. I like the texture. I like the. I like the New 52 inspired piping. If you look at here, if you look on the stomach and on the arms, he's got the New 52 style piping. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
I really like how sinewy all of the fabric looks.
Yeah, I mean, you can really, if you look at his arm, you can really see like a lot of musculature. Mm-hmm. And what's cool is because now you get to look at that.
Yeah, that looks awesome. I think I might be reversing my opinion.
you know what I like about this the most? They now look like they come from the same world.
Yeah, him and Superman.
You know what would have looked really weird if you had Henry? And here's what I think people aren't thinking about.
Like crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Right. People aren't thinking.
You'd have like an armored Batman.
It wouldn't work really.
It would look really weird.
They look very
having those two on the same screen.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like people who aren't a fan of it, which by the way is a very small number, which I didn't expect. All across the fucking world, people are in love with the suit, and I didn't expect that because the reception to Man of Steel was very, very wishy-washy. It was, the film is at 56% right now, which I think is actually like that's the reception. 50% of people seem to like it.
Half of people like the movie, and the other half
seem to dislike it. But anyone who feels like he should have the standard film armored look, take into consideration that kind of a Batman standing next to the Henry Cavill Man of Steel would look very out of place. Yeah. And the way this material looks, it looks very similar to what he's rocking in the Man of Steel.
In Man of Steel.
So standing side by side, imagine them, both of those characters, Superman and Batman, standing side by side. They look now like they come from the same place. Like they can exist in the same universe. They look aesthetically, like they belong in the same world. Whereas if you were to take a Christopher Nolan Dark Knight and then put him beside that Man of Steel, suddenly it looks like, where the fuck are you from?
It looks odd, yeah.
It does look
looks
weird.
Really weird.
So they look like they're coming from the same place. You know what I mean?
Definitely. That's true.
Yeah. And of course, you have to remember that there's a narrative explanation for why this character is, as big as he is. Mm-hmm. Dark Knight Returns is a huge inspiration on this story. Maybe not the plot, but on how they're tackling Batman.
Yeah.
Of course, in The Dark Knight Returns, the comic
a bit older.
Yeah, the comic takes it's centered around
Puts
a much
on
older
fuckload of mass.
Yeah, a much older, much more grizzled Batman who's been out of the fold for a very long time. He puts on the suit for one last hurrah, and he's put on a lot of mass. He's kind of out of shape. He's very big. He's kind of he's hulking and very lumbering, and that's about as close as you can get to representation of that.
In reality.
He looks very big. He looks quite big. And you know what helps, by the way? We talked about this before.
It's interesting. He looks about as big as Bane did in The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, right? Isn't that interesting? Yeah. That's dude, Ben Affleck got pretty big.
He did get pretty big. I'm impressed.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, no matter how you feel about
whatever you feel about him in the role, you can't say he's not taking it seriously.
Yes, exactly. So
hey, man. Good shit to you, Ben Affleck.
Yeah, and we still haven't been able to find one in color, but
I mean, I'm open to the idea of this being good.
I want it to be good. So
I want
bad,
it to
man.
be good too.
Because
it's fucking Batman and Superman on film for the first time in film history.
Why would you not want to be a fan of that?
Yeah, of course.
I want it to be good so bad.
I hope it's good, but all signs point to it not being good.
Yeah, and I love the way the chest looks. I just love the way the suit looks. I'm really a fan of it.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect to be. You know what I mean? It's pretty fascinating.
I have to say, it looks better to me now for some reason than it did the first time I saw it.
Yeah, the high contrast really allows you to actually get a good look at the suit.
Maybe it was just a shitty picture.
Yeah, but there's very little about this thing that I don't like. The only thing that I don't like is that I hope that the build quality of the ears improves. It's not, again, for me, for Reno it is the height. For me, it's not the height. I like shorter ears on my Batman. I think I prefer it. It looks more rugged to me. They look a little rubbery and a little cheap. That's the only thing about the suit I'm not digging. Maybe it's just the lighting, maybe it's just the angle, maybe that'll change. But that's the only thing.
What I will say is I hope the actual bodysuit is gray.
That's what they're gonna do.
I hope so.
There's no way
because you know what? Looks like it.
Because I mean, even looking at this image, you can tell that it's a much lighter color than the cowl.
Than the cowl and the cape and the gauntlets. Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell that the gauntlets and the cape are again. And here's the thing: for the first time ever on film, we get a true depiction of Batman as he is in the comics.
That's not
for the
black,
first time
black.
Right, which I don't hate.
I thought Nolan did it very well.
He's the only one that I thought ever did a great job.
Yeah.
You know,
I still think that Batman suit, Nolan's Batman suit, is the best. Mm-hmm. I'm beginning to like this one more, but I do think Nolan's Batman suit is still
okay.
The best
Well, that suit is awesome.
film. Yeah,
the Dark Knight suit is fucking awesome.
Yeah,
I have to say, like, here's where I'm conflicted. That suit is fucking beautiful. Dark Knight suit is the only film suit up until this one that I've ever liked. I've never liked any of them because I don't like the monochromatic black on black on black on black.
Yeah.
Partly because, and I talk about this a lot as a comic fan, comic fans can smell lazy from like a fucking mile away. And I've always felt that not even attempting to translate the character as he is in comics is kind of lazy. Yeah. Like they maybe tried and were like, oh, just make it all black, whatever. It's not working.
Black, whatever.
This is, to me, again, comic fans can smell lazy. I think that's the first time that I've ever seen, like, I guess an all black suit that's, I wouldn't call it an armored suit, but it is a little more armored than...
It's armory.
Yeah, it's like a bodysuit with shoulder pads and stuff like that. The Dark Knight suit is the only one that I really dig. You know what I mean? Of all those. I think the Batman Begins suit is cool too, but the Dark Knight suit is a lot better. Mm-hmm. This suit, to me, I can't even compare though, because it's such a different beast. Like, I feel like I can't compare it, because I'm comparing Batman film suits. I'm comparing Batman film suits to an actual Batman suit, I feel right now. So like Batman film suits to what like the characters actually looks like in the comics.
Yeah, I mean...
You know what I mean? And it's like a tough comparison.
The first time I saw this one, I kind of disliked it. I'm beginning to warm up to it now, but... irrespective of whether or not you like or dislike it, you do have to admit that this is the most accurate suit he's had on film so far.
Oh yeah,
compared to his portrayal.
It's not even
in the comics,
not even close. Yeah,
it kind of just looks like they ripped him straight out of the page of
Kevin Smith was not lying.
Returns or whatever.
Kind of just looks like a fucking drawing, just ripped right out.
Yeah, it looks like a Jim Lee drawing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like there's a quality that Jim Lee has to his drawings where his characters are always very statuesque in build.
Yeah,
and
which I love.
Like and they nailed that. You know what I mean? He's got a very statuesque build to him. I again would not have expected that.
I hate to keep repeating myself, but I truly am very impressed with Ben Affleck.
Yeah,
good shit.
Well, you know what? I'll say this much: I hope he proves us wrong.
I hope
he's fucking awesome.
He makes us eat all the crow.
Yeah,
I hope this movie makes us eat all the crow.
I would love nothing more than to be completely wrong about.
I would love nothing more but to walk out of Batman vs Superman and go, "Holy shit, I'm an idiot. That was awesome."
Yeah, I would love nothing more than for Ben Affleck to crush this fucking role.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I'm not.
Hopefully he does, man.
Yeah, I'm not completely convinced, but
I'm open. I'm open to it.
I feel like here's what's funny. I feel like before this suit, I wasn't open to caring. And after seeing this suit, like, now I care a little bit. Yeah. Because I like the way this looks so much. You know what I mean? And,
well, I mean, I think we would both agree. This is probably the first, like, good piece of news or good reveal
surrounding
Batman vs. Superman.
Yeah.
I mean, all the reveals so far, What's-Her-Face's Wonder Woman.
Gal
Awful
Gadot.
casting choice.
Yeah.
They're casting a stage actor, not even, like... a film actor,
an
as
unknown.
Cyborg, unknown. Awful. What else has there been? Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Awful.
That's really bad, isn't
Fucking
it?
awful.
You know what?
It's just been bad after bad after bad after bad, and we finally have something good here.
This is the only good thing. You're totally right. Now that you bring up Jesse Eisenberg, what are they doing about villains with this movie? Because it's not just gonna be Lex Luthor.
I have no idea.
You know what I mean?
It beats me.
Lex Luthor does not justify
Batman and Superman
teaming up. You know what I mean? He's the Joker to Superman. Mm-hmm. He's a cerebral threat. He's a cerebral villain. And here's what's kind of like, if you ask me, let's not go too deep into this. We'll save it for another podcast. We'll go deeper later. But if you had to ask me, give me a reason why you're not excited about this thing. In my opinion, it's a bad decision to bring these two together so soon, just because. Okay, so you've got a Justice League film coming up, right? Which presumably will come after this. Mm-hmm. That's the idea, from what I understand. Okay, you bring Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman. She's in this fucking thing.
Yep.
You bring the Trinity, right? Mm-hmm. The DC Trinity together. You don't fucking do that unless there's a threat worthy of that presence.
That presence.
The Avengers, they assemble
because there was a fucking threat.
When there's a threat.
Yeah.
Thanos, Ultron. Heavies, real heavy hitters. Those are the only kind of threats that justify.
Lex Luthor is not that kind of threat.
He's not that guy. But here's the
problem.
So
I have to imagine that they're going to have someone else.
A real heavy.
Yeah.
But that's the problem, though. You would introduce a heavy in the Batman vs. Superman film and not in a Justice League film?
And
it's a weird decision.
That kind of plays into another problem I have with the film.
It's a weird decision.
So... I mean, I have a lot of problems with Man of Steel. I won't go into them now, but
another let's talk.
Another time, perhaps.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest problems I have with Man of Steel is Superman just didn't really get a lot of characterization, didn't really get a lot of time to flesh out his character, so I would have liked Man of Steel 2 to be about Superman as a character.
I agree with that completely.
Flesh him out. Let's make the audience care about him and get to know what he's about, etc.
Yeah.
We're not going to get that in this movie. Because this is not Man of Steel 2. This is a prequel to the Justice League, essentially.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think Superman's a character that's fucking worthy and deserving of another movie.
Yeah, I mean, and it just kind of sucks that, Batman and Wonder Woman and all these other fucking characters are taking the spotlight away from him.
Yeah, I will agree with that. I would have liked to have seen Superman get a little more exposition and more, characterization. Mm-hmm. But who knows, man? Like, really, who knows what they have in store for this thing? We don't know. I don't know,
I got nothing, man.
Yeah. We'll see, man. So I guess with that, we'll end this Let's Talk here, man.
I guess so.
Yeah. We plan on doing a lot more of this. This is something that
but just for a minute. Getting back to Godzilla. Getting back
I'm
to
gonna let you
shit.
cook. I'm gonna let the boy cook.
Getting back to the thing that spawned this.
Go ahead, cook.
I'll end this with a story.
It's story time, ladies and gentlemen.
Tiago and one of our friends, Sebastian, saw Green Lantern together.
Sadly.
And afterwards, Tiago was telling me how, since Sebastian is a huge Green Lantern fan, loves that character, it's probably his favorite comic book character.
It's his favorite comic book character. Yeah. One of my favorites, too. I love the Green Lantern.
Yeah. After the film ended, he turned to Tiago and asked him, why is it that your favorite character, Batman, gets to have 3 of the best comic book adaptations ever?
Life ain't fair, man.
And my favorite character
gets turbo
to
shit.
have this.
Yeah.
When I left Godzilla, I felt the same fucking way.
I gave you a hug after Godzilla.
He had to give me a hug
because I
was so just.
Look, man, from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry. Sorry you had to endure that shit, dude.
All I'm gonna say is I'm mind fucked. I'm mind crushed. I'm heartbroken.
Yeah.
I will never again believe in an American Godzilla film.
The dream is dead, guys.
The dream is dead.
Pack it up.
Pack it up.
Go home.
Fuck off.
Well, I mean, look, hopefully you guys enjoyed what we had to say.
Hopefully.
I mean, we love comics.
We love
films,
sci-fi films. We love comics. We love sci-fi.
And
so, if you enjoy listening to us ramble.
Yeah, because really, like, what I want for this channel is I want to appeal to 2 demographics, like people who love games and people who love comics and people who love sci-fi and films, right?
Yep.
And generally there's an overlap. Yeah, like typically if you love video games, man, like there's a good chance you like comics. And typically if you like comics, there's a good chance you're into video games and you like sci-fi, right? So I guess ultimately the last thing that I would like to say is like I don't want this to be a thing where like we shove videos onto YouTube and that's it. Like if you like respond, if you listen to this, and
let us know what you think.
I would fucking love.
Let us know. Did you see Godzilla?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
I would love to.
What do you think about this Batman?
To hear what people have to say about it. That way we can have a conversation. Maybe even for future videos, if people respond, we can put their comments on the video.
Yeah, absolutely. We can respond to them.
We can have almost like a YouTube conversation, which is a pretty cool idea.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, well, again, guys.
Thanks so much for listening.
Thanks so much.
We'll be back eventually with another one of these things.
We will return.
And, have a nice night, guys.
We shall return. Have a good night, guys.
See you later.